Steve, I am so excited to be visiting with you, man. This is going to be something that's new. Like, we have really not gone into the sound and frequency, music therapy or sound therapy, whatever, name somebody may be coming into it with. And so, like, that conversation's super cool. But if you will, set us up a little bit on how did we even connect and why what we do is so important.
Well, I was looking online for information about parasite cleansing. You probably heard of them. I think it's called the milk cleanse. And I'm like,
Yep.
this, and I tried that. I had done that, and that felt good. But I'm like, there's got to be something way beyond that. And I was researching, and I came across your podcast, Sowing Prosperity, and across the Worm Queen, and that ignited it. And I was also interested. I'd also been looking at Jack Cruz's work and just listening to his different podcasts. And I noticed that you had both. And I was like, wow, this guy is like really tapped in. And so that's how we started to connect. And I sent you a direct message like, hey, man, I love what you're doing. And I'd love to connect. And because I don't know if you've experienced anything like this, but check out my website if you have time. And it helped me totally heal from several traumatic brain injuries.
Yeah, so that's so cool. I think that this is where we can get like really excited about putting out our work in the world and see what happens, right? When you put out and you attract things, right? You repel
Definitely.
and attract. And I think that that's a big deal. That's a big important deal. So let's go into your story a little bit on what hurt. Like, what was that pain point for you that you got into seeing, sound or parasites or Jack Cruz with light water magnetism as something that resonated and you wanted to do?
Wow. So the backstory on this is I had a number of head injuries, and the gongs came into my peripheral vision and literally appeared at a yoga class a yoga retreat that I was doing. And this gentleman played it, and it knocked me out. And when that was years before my major head incidents. And so when it came back in, all of a sudden I remembered, right, that guy played that thing, and it totally made me pass out. So that it started to just appear more and more in my reality to the point where we went over to a friend's house, and my wife was interested. If you heard of tuning forks,
Mm-hmm.
you can put them on the body and you put them on acupuncture points, and then it opens that meridian, and you're putting frequency right into the body. So we went over to a friend's house who had those, and then right before she left, she popped out a gong. She's like, "You gotta check this thing out." And immediately it brought that memory back of the yoga class where he played it and I fell asleep. And at the time, I was having a really hard time sleeping. And so we ordered one because a friend was going to teach a class and wanted to play one but couldn't afford it. So that's how it started. And then I literally started to play for myself. And I would play, I have one mallet here. I would literally be tapping on it. You're not going to hear it through this right now, but I would play until I passed out. And I would wake up with the mallet, like passed out like this, with the mallet resting on the gong. It was a smaller mallet, but it was this gong. And then it got to the point where, so I had no equilibrium. It had disappeared. I couldn't hold the conversation. My wife and I were living separate. My partner and I were living separately at the time. So that was on my own, and I had to put the bed on the floor. So I was doing this and crawling back to the bed. And then it got to the point where I would play and I would pass out, and then I would come back to, and I was still actually playing the gong. That's the whole muscle memory, right? Everything just functioning on its own without my conscious awareness attached to it at all. So that's how I started to really dive into it. And I started to notice, obviously, it's making me fall asleep. So then I wanted to know, well, what the hell is this actually doing? So then I started to research it. But this was a couple years before the pandemic. And there were people doing this, but it hadn't exploded like it is now. And there was very little information. The little bit of information I could find was written by this gentleman called his name is Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, and he is an oncologist, right? He's no longer with us. The official report is he committed suicide, but his family said, no, that's not the case at all. He was disrupting a multi-billion-dollar industry because he started to use sound therapy and sound in general in his practice, and the tumors of people started to disappear.
Did he? Is he the one that did the TED talk on sound therapy or
No, I don't believe
no,
so
no.
because
Okay.
he passed away a while ago now, and his family believes that he was murdered because he
I,
was taken out of the equation because he's healing people using frequency and sound. He was
yeah, I
introduced to a
wish that
Tibetan
wasn't.
monk.
Yeah.
He was introduced to a Tibetan monk, and they were playing the singing bowls. So he started to experiment with his patients with that and giving them, just telling them to hum, like find their own
Yeah.
mantra and hum. And then he started to see the results and started to publish them. And then the next thing you know, he's gone.
Unfortunately,
He
that's
wrote a
kind of the
book,
story
Healing with
way too
Sound.
many times. Healing with I have that book. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, so let's go into a little bit of where I want to connect some dots, maybe on
yeah,
the scientific side, right? Because this is where we also get into the arguments, or where's your proof and all this, and like I get to
right.
fight
Go
with
for it. Yeah.
idiots online all the time. And so what have you found on this maybe alignment with the Schumann resonance is, and what are we doing? Is this going to be more aligning with pituitary, the thalamus? Like what are we doing there in your perspective, and how do we tie into what Gaynor has said?
So basically, what's happening is you're using frequency and vibration to bring balance. Okay. To the body. So this is electromagnetic, right? You've learned through Jack Kruse that we're electric and magnetic, right?
Right.
The nervous system, think of it like conduit, like wire.
Yeah.
Well, what runs through an electrical conduit? Electricity, and what does it create? A magnetic field,
Yeah.
right? So our thoughts, if I think of it this way, our thoughts are electric and our feelings are magnetic. So the whole time we're charging a field of energy around us, we're creating it and charging it. It's already there, so we're adding to it. Think of it like a feedback, right? We're transmitting light and receiving light. You know this.
Yes, absolutely. And so then that goes into the whole coherent domains, or
Yep.
the water networks within the entire body. You throw in
Yep.
paragenes like dissipative structure. So like all of these, there's a lot of things that are going in there, right? Like it's not just the nervous system; it's the water, it's melanin, it's
Right.
a full compound. It's how the mitochondria take in these signals and release it. Because they really more are like they do so much more than make ATP. I'm so
Yeah, they're the
frustrated
powerhouse.
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they're simply that. They do so much in this whole system. So I guess what I'm looking for is the frequency that seems to
All
be
right.
connecting back to nature, right? Like what is that looking like? Like because obviously we've screwed it up with non-native EMFs and just where we live and blah blah blah, right? So
Right.
what are you seeing there? Well, I think Schumann's what 7.83 or hertz, something like that.
Yes, so that is the basic frequency that we tune into, literally right here. This area is literally attuned to those frequencies. And because of all the additional electromagnetic frequency in the air that can get disrupted or disturbed, at least my integration with it, right? They're happening all the time. So let's think of it this way. That resonance is out there all the time. This is communicating with it. Like when they put up someone in a Faraday box, they go nuts because you
Right.
lose that
Absolutely.
connection, right?
Yep.
So it's critical, it's crucial. It's what that's saying is frequency and vibration are everything. And what's light? It's a frequency, it's vibratory. So our temple our frontal lobe here resonates directly with that Schumann resonance. And all of these other things can create different types of interference. So the message becomes cloudy, right? That I'm receiving from the outside, because the signal comes from the outside to tell the cell what to do, to tell that DNA what to do in the center. It moves through that cellular membrane unimpeded. This is the thing about frequency, sound, music. It's not a pill. It's not something I have to eat or digest. The food, which is your craft and your specialty, what is that? We're eating sunlight. We're eating light energy. That's literally what's going on, right? Because that's what
Absolutely.
they're eating food, plants that absorb light, and we're light beings. So this is a process of that light, the water, and the magnetism. So what are those frequencies doing? The light's affecting the water, and so is the magnetism. These are generating an electromagnetic current. Cells are made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. What do atoms do? You just had, I don't know how long ago this was with Jack, but he was talking about nuclear spin.
Yeah.
That's the spin of the atomic force of the atom. These change the atomic spin. They reset the body. They're resetting everything, including the mitochondria and its ability to produce that deuterium depleted water. If we want to break it down, like we can break it down into different categories, the reality is the result is based on the vibration and frequency that's coming into the cell from the outside. Because then whatever the DNA is in here, whatever that blueprint is, it's going to be read by that particular energy. So if I think of it like different people looking at that blueprint, those are different frequencies. So then the design is going to look totally different depending on who's looking at it. So that means that whatever the frequency is, Venus or a water gong, it's going to change that atomic spin. How? By bringing it back into its natural coherent balance. You mentioned coherence. What is this doing? It's bringing additional coherence to the heart and to this organ, right? These two start to synchronize together. So then what does that do to the water element of the body? It's supercharging it with wherever my thoughts are and my emotional state. I'm literally charging them, the water content of my body, with those frequencies all the time.
You
This
know,
is how it's, go ahead.
I think there's a whole nother component that I'm absolutely like super fascinated by, and it's tying it together. There's a whole glycocalyx aspect. Like what happens on the surface is maybe one of the most important thing. And so, like
Yes.
if what we're seeing is when the glycocalyx collapses, right? This is a sulfated polymer that does all kinds of stuff, but it is an electromagnetic interface, right? And so when it collapses, we are more susceptible to infections or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The cancers can hijack it, and I think they do this in part with utilizing deuterium to make a thicker glycocalyx where it evades the immune system. So the takeaway from what you just said is I think that this would have to be affecting the glycocalyx in a very positive way. And I don't think very many people talk about this very much, but I think it may be fundamental to the entire process. So that's super cool, super fascinating. If you will, let's go back. We'll go back. I want to know more of the history of using gongs in sound therapy. You brought up the Tibetan monks and stuff. Like I want to know what you know about how did this even start, or where we think it started.
So the information that I've received about it is basically it was only available to, what do they call that? Like the aristocratic class, like high beings in society who had a high level of status. They didn't, because these aren't cheap, right? And they're metal. And a long time ago, if you had that much metal, you were rich. So they were used in the courts by healers for the kings, the queens, all of the aristocrats. So what do they call that? The serfs or the peasants didn't get any of it, right? The only thing they would hear was the gong being rapped on to announce an event, right? And think about this. When you grew up, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm in my 50s, like I'm almost mid 50s, right? So when I was younger, there were church bells all over the place. Now that sound permeates and resonates out for huge distances, right? So what that was doing is purifying the atmosphere and bringing balance and stability to the environment. Do you notice now that those don't exist? There's few and far between. Why?
Yeah, I didn't
Because
realize
that's
it until you
healing
just
the
brought it up.
environment. That's changing the environment, literally at the atomic level. Because within space contains all the elements. So if I'm changing space itself, I'm changing the composition of everything. And then how it interacts and interrelates with everything. Because it's all interdependent. You know that as a farmer, right? It's right here. Roots, trunk, fruit. It's all
Absolutely.
interdependent.
So is this primarily more of an Asian type Chinese? Where do we get the most from understanding the history?
The history comes from Asia, from that part of the world. And then it has filtered, just like many of the spiritual traditions, out into the West and across the world. So that's what's happened with this. And literally, because of the pandemic, it exploded. And the information exploded. And there's people doing it all over the place, which is great. And at the same time, not so great. Because not everybody, okay, I'll use the example, not everybody has your experience or knowledge, or like Dr. Jack Cruz. So who do you want to learn from and practice with? The expert, right? Or someone who's
Sure.
been doing this for a long time, not someone who just got a weekend certification, right? They may be great and may be natural at it, but the idea is you're going to go with somebody with experience. Why is that? Because what comes through these comes through me. And that's not an egotistical thing. In your last interview with Dr. Cruz, he mentioned you connecting with people and helping to promote them because they're connecting to you and bringing to you information and energy that can help facilitate your growth and everyone's growth. Well, right here, right? This is exactly what you've done. And you mentioned it this morning about connecting together and like, wow, this is totally new and different. So here you have that playing out right away. Why? Because you've taken the time and energy to expand your consciousness and awareness. And that's what this is going to do. Also, this works on so many different levels. Understanding it scientifically for me has been important because it opens my awareness and consciousness. Some people don't care, and I've had people tell me, don't tell me about it, how it works, because then I'll just think about it. And the
Yeah.
idea is to just relax and let that go. Because then the real energy and information, the truth will unveil itself. I've done a lot of yoga and meditation for over 30 years. So the effect of this on someone is going to be very different than if someone just started playing. And that's not an egotistical thing. It's a fact, right? Like anyone who trains for anything, like, am I going to learn from the kid who just learned how to throw the football? Or am I going to ask Tom Brady to help me?
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Well, let's go through what it looks like as somebody is new to this and wants to get involved. How would they go through, say, a program or go about learning those first steps?
Well, you can definitely look up information online now as far as Google and that, because like I said, everything's expanded. If you want to work with me, I mean, I do have a website and I do have a video library. And what I've found is if someone works, so when I was doing privates before I had the library up, I still do private sessions. If someone would come once a week, okay, so what I did is I'll backtrack. When this first happened and I was really effed up, couldn't do much, First year I played for me, and then I got better. And then that second year I started to bring it out into the world. Like, okay, how is this going to affect other people? So I would just play, and some people would give me dinner, some people would do whatever. And I noticed it worked on anything and everyone because it's all based on energetics and frequency. So if we can rebalance the electrical system inside the body and outside, then you're going to start to create additional coherence and things will naturally start to come back into balance. So if people want to bring that balance back into their life, when I've been doing the privates, I found once a week is all that they needed. And I'm talking about people who had decades of pain or discomfort, surgeries to correct what didn't get corrected. And then within a few months, decades of pain are gone. How is that even possible? It's possible because of what's happening internally and externally in the biofield to bring that balance back into the system. So just attending, I do new moon and full moon sessions each month, and then I have that video library. So twice a month there, and the video library, you can watch as much as you want. It's unlimited. My suggestion, though, is 2 to 3 times a week. Why? Because this isn't regular music. I don't know why that's coming up on my screen. This isn't regular music. Like, those balloons were trippy.
I love it.
That
I
was
love it.
weird.
So, well, let's go into a little bit. What's the difference between experiencing it in person versus virtual? What's happening there?
So just like you go to a concert, you can feel the energy of the environment, the people that are there. So that's a difference, obviously. But if it's recorded, you can feel it and you can also hear it. It might not be to the same magnitude, right? Let's say with the headphones on or just listening this way, I get this. But at the live venue, I get this, right? So the amplification is a little bit different. It doesn't mean, though, that it's less effective. I've actually had people who had only listened to me online and then came to a retreat that I was presenting at, and they had to leave the room after I usually play for 45 minutes. After about 30 minutes, half a dozen people got up and left. And I didn't know why until afterwards. They said it was a little too intense. They'd only been listening online and they thought that was very powerful. And then when it happened in person, they were like, oh, this is a little too much. And they had to go outside. Some of them relieved themselves and some of them were okay. But it's going to push on anything and everything that is out of balance. So if I have an injury, let's say here, could be from 30 years ago, but I still have pain in it, where are these frequencies going to go? Right there. Right to the imbalance.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter what it is. This is the most bizarre thing about it. I want to say it's non-discriminatory, yet it's discriminatory in that it'll go right toward it. Like, it doesn't discriminate. It's going to work through everything in your body, yet when it finds an imbalance, it's going to go right there. So it's self-cognizant. It's all-knowing in its own sense. These are literally
So,
giving off an electron field, a negative electron field. So in person, that's part of the difference. And I'll tell you right now, the mics, like this one, but in particular this one, it's a stereo mic. When I listen to the recording, I'm hearing sound that I didn't hear while I was playing. So it has advantages to it, recording it, as opposed to in person. Also,
yeah.
you can replay it.
So, yeah, there you go. So, do you utilize or recommend headphones, speakers, a time of day to use it? The setup, right? Like, I would imagine it probably would be different from being like in the middle of something busy and hectic versus kind
Totally.
of having your own space. So, what kind of, like, if somebody wants to do this in home, advice do you give for laying that out?
So if you're in a busy environment, I would definitely leverage loud outside. Like I live in the city, downtown, put some headphones on. I would not as much recommend the wireless, and you know why. But the plug-in kind and close-eared. not the earbuds. And you'll receive additional, which you mentioned before, binaural beats. Because what's happening is like it's a stereo, so it's picking up this gong on one mic and this one. So then it's stereo back and forth here. So it creates binaural beats. The brain is doing that, this organ. And that starts to lower the vibratory rate from high beta more into alpha and theta. And theta is where young kids are at. Like, I don't know how old your kids are right now, but below the age of 7, well, below the age of 5, they're definitely there. And like 1, 2, delta, right? They like to sleep a lot, right?
Yeah.
So then as they get older, that frequency shifts. So what this is doing is bringing us back to that alpha and theta, which is absorbed like a sponge. It's a hypnotic state. So then this
How would
just
we
goes
do a
right in.
group? How would we do a group? Okay, so like I have 4 kids, so that would be, let's say I was going to do this at in the bedroom with my
Yeah.
4 kids. So that's 5 of us. What would be the recommendation there?
The ideal would be it's sitting up there, but Bluetooth speaker, and you can crank it up and then just have everybody listen. And everybody's going to receive it differently because everybody's different and their system is different. Like your son who had the cancer will receive it differently than you will. Not just because of his age and the development of his brain, but because of what's going on here.
Mhm.
So it's going to vary depending on the individual. So when I start, I try to remember to tell people just breathe into your experience. Because Logan, this could bring up mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual things. Like people seeing, well, I won't tell you exactly, but they'll see relatives and they'll see other things like solutions to problems. Everything will just all of a sudden arise because the conscious mind is out of the way. It's moved into that hypnotic state, so things can come up that need to be processed. Pain in the body is unprocessed energy. And these gongs are actually resetting the mitochondrial function. That's not a joke. It's because of the science, and you know the science. We can piece it all together. Because what's happening is these frequencies. Okay, so that spin I was talking about, like it literally, I'll read you the AI thing right here that generated. I typed in, how do you maintain the nuclear spin of an atom? And it says, maintaining nuclear spin involves understanding that it's an intrinsic property resulting from combined momentum and can be manipulated using external field, electromagnetic fields and radio frequencies. Boom, right here.
Mm.
This is changing that spin. So if it's changing the atomic spin, it's going to change the function of that mitochondria because it's atomic. And I just mentioned what it's doing. It's bringing things naturally back into balance. So I don't have to think about it. It just does it. It's a function of frequency of light, water, and magnetism. Here's the water, here's the magnetism, and we create light. So it's all right here. This is a fully encompassed, holistic way of working with our experience. And it'll work with, this is why it works with anything. And I learned that year that I just went around, I was in a very impoverished area. So I played for free, man. And I wanted, and I just had these small gongs. I didn't even have the big ones yet. Right? This is mind blowing. Like I would love to introduce Jack to this. Just let him hear it. Have him hear it. And just, I would love to hear what he thinks and what his
Yeah.
response is, just because I know he'll get it. But very few
Well, and you
people do.
never know with Jack. I never
Yeah.
would have thought he would have got all excited about Vogel crystals, but he did.
Yeah.
So, I want to play like maybe devil's advocate a little bit
Yeah, go for
here.
it.
So early on with when Lander was diagnosed with cancer, I was like, I want to know anything and everything that is going to possibly help that has little to no downside. And so, like, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, like, what is going to be the problem? And like to me, this seems like no downside. Like worst case, you're sitting there doing some focused thinking, right? Like relaxation. You're giving yourself a break, and you're having these sound waves, whether they do something or not. Like worst case, you're relaxing and you're alleviating some stress, right? Like
Right.
you're meditating. Uh, so I'm thinking, like, and now if what you're saying is accurate, and I'm not doubting you, that's huge upside. That's massive upside with little
Yeah.
to no downside. So, like to me, like why would somebody not try this? Just simply because they have the dogma that it's woo
Well,
woo and it won't work
you
before you
got it,
even try
brother.
it.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, to be totally honest with you, this is the first podcast I've done for that exact reason. I've gone to medical centers, I've gone to cancer centers. I'm like, look, man, I'll play for free. Like, just let's see what happens. Let's do a door, like, sorry, you quack, like just the door
Yeah.
closes. When I got better, they did the QEEG. They put that helmet on you with all the sensors. They did it. I was 44 at the time. They took the readings, said I was 64 based on the electrical conductivity. That's not good, man. So I was
No, that's
going like, I'm going like
yeah.
this fast, right? My partner can attest to this. It was horrible to be around me. Think about it. You lose your cognition like that and you're going down and you're only 40, like it sucked. After a year of playing these, like pretty steadily, at least a few times a week, 3, 4 times a week for myself, they redid it 3 times because they didn't believe the results. It said that I had the conductivity now of someone who was 22.
Wow.
What were the side effects? I got better. Sure, you're going to purge and you're going to purify. That's part of the process because it's going to push out what isn't part of your system that's in balance. You mentioned in one of your podcasts, like fundamental note. We have a fundamental note. That's what this is. This has a fundamental note. So we all have a fundamental note, and things resonate with us and they don't, and cancer doesn't. So it's going to want to push that out of the body. Think about it. I mentioned Dr. Mitchell Gaynor was using it to do that exact thing and publishing this work, and then just disappears. Yeah, because it works. If I'm using something that is 90 times more efficient and effective than a pill, well, yeah, I'm going to want to stop that person from promoting that. We lose 90% of what's in a pill through thermodynamics. Like if there was 10 milligrams of CBD in this coconut water, I only get 1. But if there was 10 milligrams of that coming out of this, I get all of it. There's no impedance, is what they call it. There's going right through. Goes right through the body. And even if I'm wearing headphones, it's affecting the entire body and nervous system. 9 of the 9 of the cranial nerves run into that eustachian tube in that inner ear. So I'm stimulating all kinds of things. This increases the production of nitric oxide in the body, serotonin, and another molecule called anandamide. These are molecules that are released. So what's happening is it stimulates your hypothalamus. There's the HPA axis. You know what that is, right?
Yep.
So this stimulates that, but not the adrenals. It's stimulating the hypothalamus, opens up your pituitary gland, and then in the center of your skull and brain is the pineal gland. So it starts to stimulate to secrete. And it starts to secrete DMT and anandamide.
On the pituitary, do you
Yeah.
have any sort of evidence that it might help decalcify pituitary gland? Is there anything there?
It's
Just curious.
so I don't have evidence of that, but let's think about this for a moment. Like if it's vibrational and that gland is being stimulated by vibration and frequency, and that frequency of the calcification doesn't match what's coming in, what's it going to do? Break it apart.
Right.
They use sound to destroy stones, kidney stones, right? And what does it do? It breaks
So
them
true. So true.
apart, right?
Yeah,
And just
I mean,
like
that's what stimulated the question, because it makes perfect
yeah,
sense to me. Um,
like you've seen people sing to the wine glass and it quote unquote shatters. It doesn't shatter, it explodes because I'm doubling the amplitude of that frequency. And the atomic structure of that glass can't hold that much energy. So then what does that mean that these are doing? They're literally increasing the energy levels in your body. Like most of the time when people are done with the session, they're like, wow, am I hungry? Yeah, of course you are. Because the body can hold a higher voltage now. I just mentioned after a year of playing these, my voltage had been dropping like a bomb. Then it went the other way like a rocket. So it's shifting it. It's taking the battery that's on a low charge and charging it full. That's why I only play for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you're full. Kids, 30 minutes at the most. Their brain's in a different wavelength, so it affects them a little bit quicker, especially the younger they are. I've worked with kids with learning disabilities. One was going to the Waldorf school. About, you know what that is? Very
yeah,
liberal. So if you're
yeah,
about to get kicked out of there, there's a problem. He was the biggest problem there. 3
yeah.
sessions, nobody believed that he did these to shift his whole experience. He went from being isolated, what is that called? Like when you're really internal, withdrawn. See, I don't even
Hmm.
know the word because I'm not so much that way. And non interactive to totally the opposite. And the kid's brilliant. So it wasn't that he wasn't intelligent.
What have you seen with autism and the gongs and the sound therapy?
Autism totally mellow, or the autism starts to mellow out. Like in one
Again, what
experience
would
I
be the
had,
downside?
there isn't a downside. The one
This is
young man, like he all of a sudden started to talk when he could, then all of a sudden he started to form small sentences. He had a lot of times with the autism, it's sure it's physical, but where it starts is the ear. And the inner ear in particular. There's a muscle in there called the acoustic reflex muscle. So kids with learning disabilities, they'll do this thing called auditory integration training or the Tomatis method. They put headphones on the kids. They have a machine in front of them that they put frequencies out. It puts frequency out, right? So it's alternating. What is that doing? Binaural beats. What are these doing? Binaural beats. You know how long it takes to use that method? They recommend 30 to 40 treatments. It was accomplished in 3 with this young man. 3 treatments, like it usually takes over a year or 2 years, that other method. This happened in a couple months because 2 months, I think it was, because he was several hours away from where his grandparents lived. The downside is you're going to have some release, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. And the only downside to that is my ability to process it and move forward with it. But if I learn some meditation techniques and just following the breath, bro, following the breath will change your consciousness because it's neutral. There's no judgment in the breath. And it's not charging me or I'd be in debt, right? The breath, here's the thing that will link to some of what Jack's talked about. This physical body, but particularly the breath, links us from the classical, which is the material, to the quantum, right? This. So if I focus on my breath, what am I doing? It's inside and outside of the body, that air, right? So I'm connecting both. This is something most like meditators won't teach you because just like Jack, they've only scratched the surface. I've been doing this for decades, and that's not a brag, it's just a reality. And this is my own realization of it. Like the breath is key. It's the first thing we take when we come out of the womb, and it's the last thing when we leave. Next breath, next life, what's next? That's a famous Eastern philosophy statement. We don't know. So it would be good to become more aware of it and more aware of our sound environment. Like you're out in
Yeah.
nature, you have a farm that's wonderful for your kids and for you. And if you have
Something
running
you
water,
just stimulated two thoughts actually, like the early morning. So like because of
oh,
Jack, right? Like we make a point to be out early morning, and you
right.
hear birds, and birds have
Yep.
they give a certain feeling. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a feeling of when you hear those early morning birds,
Yes.
or you think of like a waterfall. You sit by a waterfall and that gives you
Right.
a certain feeling.
Yep. So that's where I was going with it. But I was going to ask if you have a river by your place, and here's why. Because of the sound like that. But also, you mentioned the birds. So when I lived in Hawaii, I would wake up before the birds got up to start my meditation practice. So I would begin to hear the layers of sound. And these things right here, the ears, they're wired to this. This organ, the brain, is literally designed to entrain to sound, just like the eyes are designed to entrain to light. And I have a red and a green here. The red I learned, from all the work that's out now. The green I learned from all the growing that I used to do, because I would use the green light at night to go in so that it didn't mess up the photoelectric cycle, the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because if you go in, I mean, I imagine you probably start plants in a greenhouse or whatever, and it's dark at night, or you keep the light on, so those are affecting it, that light and everything that's coming in.
I mean, a
And the
lot,
time
and
of
and
day.
something on
Yeah,
that
go ahead.
green light that I find absolutely fascinating is a phenomenon called the green flash. And so this is right before sunrise and right after
Yeah,
sunset. It's a
yeah,
1 to 2 second blast of green light. And I think that's a timing mechanism. I think that helps set us, time, it's a timestamp of start and end of day. But the layers of sound are, it's fascinating.
it
And when
is.
you tie in sensation and what we're saying about mitochondria and the melanin piece between all the senses is absolutely fascinating, and Jack's brought that out a lot, right? We don't think of like the olfactory as having a melanin sensation with it,
No,
but like for me, I go outside a lot, and it was worse when I was younger, before I started trying to like get a tan and stuff. I would sneeze, right? You see the sun and you sneeze, right?
yep.
And this is a melanin sheets, dehydrated melanin sheets, or lack of melanin. And so I find the whole ear and the cochlea, we have melanin in there too. Like how all of this is interrelated. It's just beyond fascinating and complex, but so so cool.
Yeah, and he talks about leptin too, and so all these things like melanin, leptin, all these different things, like what are they triggered by, and what also helps to balance them? Light and electromagnetism, which is sound. So light and sound are the key, both of them, not just one. And Jack doesn't emphasize the food, you do, but I just mentioned before, why should we also emphasize the food? Because we're eating light, like it's a direct ingestion of sunlight, because that plant is absorbing the sun and then creating a plant that we can eat. So what am I eating? I'm literally eating sunlight, which has an electrical and a magnetic component to it.
Oh,
And
yeah,
music
we're
does
talking like
too.
that.
Yeah. It
Well, this has
regulates
been
all those things.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's regulating all those things, bro, without me having to think about it, because those are all autonomic functions, right? And they can be
Sure.
manipulated through chemicals. Not as effectively as through these, obviously. I just mentioned that. Which, if Big Pharma finds out, I'll have guys in black suits coming to my door, right? That's what
If
happened to the other
if only
guy.
that was just 100% a joke, but
Yeah,
no, I like it's a big deal, right? And like we're liable to even get censored on some of the stuff that we put
yeah,
out based on having a conversation to where this could be an option for people to just experience, right?
for sure.
It's crazy the world we live in, honestly. But man, I'm gonna give a lot of your content a go, experiment with it, play around with the kids. It's again seems like no downside and potential huge upside. So Thank
Yeah,
you so much for the time, and let's wrap up with telling people where to go to learn more about you. What's the best way to participate in what you put out and what you do, the retreats and so on.
so if they want to contact me directly, I can be reached at alchemedicsonictree.com. That's ALCHEMEDICSONICTREE.com. And if you want to contact me like via the phone, it's 970-316-1616. I definitely see that more often than the email. That's the best way to get a hold. Like those are the two best ways to get a hold of me, email or through a text. And then I would highly recommend joining the video library just because of the fact of what it contains. And not only that, I do those 2 sessions a month, the new moon and the full moon, and you'll get the link for those two. So basically, if you look at the price of it right now, it's a monthly renewal. That's the only option I have. But those 2 sessions are almost the price of that. So you get all of that stuff basically for nothing. It's just,
Cool.
that's what I'm doing right now. That is going to change in the future, but I'm offering that to people right now, and people who, like in the future, people who come like through your stream, I would offer that too as well. Just because I want to make it affordable for people to listen to it. And I've come up against a little bit of resistance from trying to get people to do it like live in person. They want it whenever it's convenient for them. So, okay, deliver it in that package then. But
Sure.
that would be my recommendation, and listening to it 2 to 3 times a week would be enough. The whole, like a 45-minute session. There's
Yeah.
7-minute, 10, 20, there's different lengths on there. And if you would like to listen every day, just listen to the shorter sessions. An ideal time, yeah, when you get up, like when you're looking at the light coming in, sure, put like a 7-minute one on, or go to the website. There's a couple on there that are free, and you can listen to those too. Did you get an idea? But I would recommend signing up for the library, because right now I think there's 27 videos. I'm just going to continue to add to it. And there'll be videos on there that you can't get any other way, because I'm not on YouTube. I'm not doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Awesome,
really
man. Thank you
appreciate
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to share it and your passion behind your craft. Love it, and we're gonna keep diving in and trucking along, brother.
Excellent. I look forward to talking to you again in a little while after you've experimented with your family and your kids and friends.
Absolutely, brother.